I've got a weird robot voice.
Yeah,
Okay.
same here.
Okay, Pierre, thank you for making time to chat to me today.
Pleasure. I try to help as much as I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. So you're an osteo, and you see people in London in your clinic,
Yeah.
and you see people of all types, all kind of training backgrounds. I'm just asking. You can tell us.
Yeah, so as an osteopath, you obviously see like you've got a range of consultation depending of like people backgrounds in terms of training, but also in terms of injuries as well. And we always, as osteopath, have tried to have a holistic approach. So we try to see if the person is well balanced, okay, and see if there is one side who is maybe a bit weaker than the other one, and try to kind of rebalance it. So that's why we always work on the side with physiotherapists or coaches to try on the side to make people a bit more stronger and balanced.
Yeah, I know that firsthand because you've helped me rebalance myself. So recently I started this hanging challenge and I asked for your opinion on it. I started this because hanging helped me. I was a very hunched over person, and it helped me over time get a little bit straighter in posture. And then on the way, I realized that Ido Portal had a similar challenge, but a lot more intense. It was 7 minutes a day for 30 days. And in that challenge, a book was recommended, written by a doctor. And I mentioned the book to you and you said, yes, it's a great book. You should read it.
Yeah, from Dr. Kirsch, is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And basically he makes the argument that through his own practice and research that hanging was almost medicine or rehab for a lot of people, and that in some cases it helped them avoid surgery. And so would you mind explaining the basics of this idea to me again?
So when you go through his book, so basically he's talking about first in terms of anatomy, how the shoulder moves, and why like hanging from a bar, whether it's like active or passive, could bring like some benefit. And basically he's just saying that like from a certain range of movement, when your arm is like perfectly overhead, basically there is a gap between your acromial joint and your glenohumeral joint, okay, and your tendons are actually not compressed when they are when you are in complete overhead movement, which is interesting because you think that actually they might be compressed because it's a bit of a you would think not like a usual position, but that's what it's interesting about hanging from a bar. It's just it brings so many benefits, and it could avoid for certain people a surgery further on.
Yeah. So basically, if I can put it in simple terms, and you can correct me, it's the edge of what comes after your collarbone, and then the top of your arm, and the space
Exactly.
between those two.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's going to create, so basically when you're going to raise your arm, you've got a certain point where you're going to have a bit of compression, which is usually about that curve of 90-degree angle. And from there, when you're going to go completely overhead, you're going to create that space between those two joints and free up a bit the tendons, which like could provide some rehabilitation and some strength as well if you do it like properly as well.
Yeah. And have you recommended it to people? Have you found it beneficial? What's your take on it? Because that's his opinion.
Yeah. So
what do you think?
For me, I use it in two ways. The first one is if there is no whether it's a background of injury or not injury, or whether it's an athlete or a non-competitive person, it's a good. I use it as a test, because sometimes when you ask people just to hang for a bar, even with a step, if they're not like comfortable to do it like with the full body weight, you can like ask their feedback on it. So some people are going to tell you, oh, I feel like a stretch into my forearm, or they'll say, oh, actually I feel a stretch into my lats, or I'm tight on my pecs. So for us as osteopath, or for the other professions as well, it gives us like a tool about where to investigate during the consultation. And on the other side as well, to try a bit what Dr. Kirsch has like spoke in his book. I found that for some people, he has some really great benefits that I think we're going to talk like later on. But yeah, that's my two ways of using it as a test and as a rehab as well perspective. And it's a good indicator to see maybe where there is some musculoskeletal imbalances or tension as well.
As in, if one arm feels something and the other doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or maybe your chest is going to be tight on the other side, or maybe you're going to have one shoulder who's going to cope with it and not the other one. And that's interesting to know for us, but also for the patient as well, actually, or for the client. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm feeling, I don't know, a tight chest here, but a tight shoulder, or then there's
that that there is that's something that needs to be worked on, it, whether it's like imbalances or whether it's strength, just or mobility, but there is something just going on there.
And a question that I was asked a couple of times was, how come we don't hang more these days? As in, why is it just so, why aren't more people mentioning it as an essential? If it's so beneficial, why aren't we doing it more? Or why is it so forgotten?
That's a good question. I think maybe a few things. So from that book we just we came like long time ago, I think there are not so many other books or research about it. And the way I guess maybe you heard it, and I heard as well about that, is about hanging and the benefits is by like coaches, trainers, and other surgeons or physiotherapists and osteopaths who are actually by word to mouth just talking about it. And I would say that's for me the first thing. Then I would say maybe some people are a bit scared or don't really know if they are going to damage their joints by just hanging on the bar, doing that at home, or they just or maybe they're thinking, oh, you're just hanging on a bar to practice a pull-up, but I can't do pull-ups, so there is no point for me to hang from the bar. So that might be another aspect as well. Yeah.
And in terms of that second thing you mentioned, fear, is there any actual danger? Like, would you say 100% of the population should be hanging, or 90%, or who should and shouldn't?
So to say who shouldn't, it's always hard to say who shouldn't. So I would say, if you are, I think most of us now are seeing by whether it's a physiotherapist or an osteopath or a chiropractor or a physical therapist. So I would say, if you are unsure, just always ask your practitioner a bit about it. But then I would say there are few indications for me where I wouldn't do it, in the sense that if you have a dislocated shoulder, so you've got a very unbalanced shoulder, that would be maybe not the first thing to do. That sounds obvious, but like if you got a great instability, on your shoulder or on your or on another joint, I would say I would start first with other rehab exercises, and then maybe as well for very if you got a severe osteoporosis as well, so very weak bones and like maybe some like the like very damaged cartilage as well. I would be careful on that as well. I wouldn't say completely no, but I would be like, I wouldn't do that completely. I would do some tests with other things first overhead before hanging on the bar. But apart for this kind of conditions, I would say everyone could potentially try. Being always careful about the level of pain as well. If there is any pain at some point, just being careful. So this is where the coaches and the trainers are good at that, about like maybe scaling from with maybe a little step at the start, and just to help and progress to like further movements.
Yeah. You can always start with your feet touching, and then as you feel comfortable, progress to a full body hang in the air. And also, as you said, if there's pain, don't do it. Is that a good gauge to someone who hasn't had a dislocation, isn't suffering from osteoporosis, and has checked it with their physio, and physio is, you're good to go. So the general rule of thumb, would you say, is if there's no pain, go ahead?
Yeah, I would say for that. Then sometimes, pain is very different for every person. So I would say just being mindful. It might be, so because as well, we all, our generation, and the one coming, we're working more sitting in front of a desk, so there are very few movements overhead. So sometimes some people, when you test them, they feel actually quite stiff, or they don't have the range of motion. And there is a bit of pain, but then it's just like progressing and scaling with the scaling option of more comfortable, and then you can like progress as well. So I would say pain, just being mindful about how painful it is, and then seeing as well with your practitioner. But if you don't have any, like what we say, these severe conditions or a huge instability, I would say you could definitely go for it.
And what about kids? Let's say I had a 5-year-old child, and provided I was underneath there waiting to catch it when it falls. Is it a good thing for children to be practicing? Because, for someone who's sort of been for years like this on the computer, it can be quite difficult to start. But if we start kids from a young age, is that a good thing to be doing?
Yeah. So the funny thing about that is, like, when you see like babies and how they evolve, reaching a certain age, they are almost the first by like reaching overhead. And if you actually observe some kids in a park, they like reaching overhead, they're pulling themselves up a little bit, and they raise like their knees forward, like completely like from instinct. So that's a movement that like should be done by kids, and that's something I think that they would automatically do. And yes, I would definitely, they will do it anyway.
Yeah,
I think
it's just at some point they stop. Or I don't know if I ever hung as a kid or as a child or as a baby, but I don't remember hanging ever at school. And I think we did have monkey bars. I just don't remember having the instinct of like, I must hang. But then obviously
never on trees. You never
on trees, on trees and on climbing walls. Did quite a bit of climbing. So that was definitely, we had a tutor who would take us climbing, and who built a wall in our yard for us to climb. So that was part of the regime. But actual like vertical hanging from bars,
Yeah.
I think I ever did as a child, and I think it's a wasted opportunity. Any time is good. The earlier the better.
Anytime is good. Yeah. And they are great for that. And I think we just lose it as we evolving, where we come more like with motions who are like forward, and with shoulders a bit like them of forward as well. And just by doing some hanging from earlier age, I think that would prevent some back issues.
Yeah, it's so pertinent for right now, when almost all of our work, not all of our work, but so many people sit down to work and look at a screen to work and look down at their phones. And so it's something is needed to fix that. Hey, and so hanging is the obvious choice, but I guess someone needs to tell, more people like you need to tell the world that it's safe, I guess, because if it's completely foreign, then there's a lot of doubt and insecurity around it. So it's good that you are here.
Yeah, we just need to, and even yourself, like what you're doing with the challenge and what you trying to build right now, I think is really good, because it makes people realize that's very beneficial for them, and then it just spread the word as well. So that's really good.
I was quite impressed actually, because there's all kinds of ages, and people bought a home pull-up bar for the first time, some people, which was fantastic. And then some other people found monkey bars around near home. So that was quite impressive to me, that, if you feel the need, there is a way.
Yeah.
There's a will, there's a way.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything else that I haven't asked that you feel should be said?
I think well, I just wanted to maybe enunciate some benefits that I've seen with some of my patients. And I would say the first one, and you tell me if you felt that as well, if you disagree, but like the first one I had from people hanging from the bar was like they feel straight away a spine decompression, which makes like a bit of space into your vertebrae, and the sensation is almost like straight away. And then when they like release the hand from the bar, there is that sense of like chest open, shoulders back, and shoulder blades as well, in a good position. So yeah, that's one of my I think first feedback that I had. Then the second one was more grip strength. So this was more actually with some people like who train a lot, especially in CrossFit, who told me, oh, my grip is not that strong when I deadlift or when I do pull-ups, and you ask, well, have you practiced just hang from the bar and see how long you can last? And they're like, oh, I haven't actually. And then when you start to build as well from there with just that simple movement, they were like the benefits after all for gymnastic movements or even lifting movement was like greater, which was like, a good feedback as well. And for us, in terms of more medium to long term as practitioners, I would say shoulder flexibility and stability is like really important, and especially the shoulder blade stability and strength, which prevents a lot of injuries later on your shoulders or on your back as well, to keep it simple. So that's something that you notice like further on, a few weeks after seeing your first patients as well, or clients. So I think that's the main, I would say, benefits. Then maybe there are others as well. I think if you do it like with if you do a dead hang with like your feet forward and engaging the core, I think it's a great exercise as well for core strength. So you do two kind of areas in one movement, which is great. So yeah, I think yeah, that's what we have noticed the most with my colleagues as well. I'm sure there are others, but I think from just a simple movement, the benefits are just so great that like we should start by just back to the basics sometimes.
It's so interesting when you say, well, I agree with all of those things, but especially the decompression of the back, because for quite a lot of people, the back has started getting a shape that it wasn't meant to be in, you know, with like kyphotic or anterior pelvic tilt and just too much curve, essentially.
Yeah.
And so it's a good opportunity to just stretch it out and get it a little bit more stacked. But I use it in between squat sets. So between squat sets, I just hang just to decompress, because then I'm going to put some more weight on my back and I just want to undo the
decompression.
But that I find super helpful. The grip strength is an amazing insight, because every single person that is doing the hanging challenge, probably the only thing they complain a bit about is the grip. Like, oh my God, I'm sliding. And I said, just chalk up. And then someone just literally chalked up so hard. Their hands were white and I just had to laugh, because it's our weakest link, isn't it? You know, you can only hang for as long as your grip can keep you there.
Kind of, yeah, exactly.
Hence why gymnastics grips and all that stuff. But I think a lot of people think, well, what? I'm just hanging, I'm not doing anything. But it looks like you're not doing anything, but you're doing a ton of stuff. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then on top of that we're just talking about just like by doing a dead hang. But then if you do an active hang, then you start to activate more muscle as well. So you're working on as well on stability and strength as well on those muscles. And
so this is the passive and this is the active.
Where you're activating your lats and positioning your shoulder blades as well. And that's another thing that brings a lot of benefits as well. So trying to make like people like aware of actually all those benefits, and ask them trying to feel what's happening in their own body. It's a good as well. You can get like very good feedbacks and orientate yourself as well about a lot of things.
Yeah. So I said to, and you can interrupt me and tell me if anything is wrong, but I said to people that, you know, hanging is both a stretching and a strengthening pattern or movement. You can use it as you like. Essentially, you can just hang and try and get straighter, or from the side, you know, elbows over shoulders and shoulders over pelvis. Or you can do your active hanging and more strengthening movements to get stronger, because a lot of people are already vertical, perfectly vertical. And for a few people, I see that they're not quite vertical just yet. And that was me 6 years ago. I couldn't get my arms over my, couldn't get my elbows over my shoulders. So I was somewhere there.
yeah. So maybe a bit of like flexibility issues at the start, and then
and so hanging helped me get that into that range, and it took a very long time, and I'm still not entirely there, but it just helps bring everything into alignment just because of gravity, and I think helps the shoulder blades slide, right, because they were just so stuck.
And if you've got a good movement in your shoulder blade, then you've got a good movement as well on your shoulder joints. You can't have a great movement on your shoulder if your shoulder blade is not moving properly.
Yeah.
So that's like all in one movement. So fixing the shoulder blade and giving like some flexibility and some strength. It's gonna give you some stronger shoulder as well.
I find that without hanging, because I've suffered from a lot of different things, and trying to get more mobility without hanging by pressing is a million times harder. Maybe not a million, but it's a lot harder to get into those positions if something isn't pulling me down. So by me actively pressing and actively pulling back, it's a lot harder, because that force I'm trying to exert is not 60 kg, which is what I weigh. I can push up, but not 60 kg, whereas I can pull 60 kg. So that's why it was just a lot more effective than trying to push and move actively without being weighted down. Yeah. If you said, okay, I've got someone who's quite hunched over, would you, and let's say this is just a fictional scenario, and they were hanging daily, would you say over time, would you say if you had someone who's quite kyphotic and they came to you and you said to them, you're going to hang a little bit every day, and then I'll see you in 5 years and you'll be straighter?
I mean, I would like that to be that simple. I would say, yeah, it would, if he's very hunched over. I would say to that person that like doing that hanging position might improve some range of motion or some flexibility. But then if he's really hunched forward, or maybe he has another condition, maybe he would need some work as well, some flexibility work on his thoracic spine, maybe some core strength. So I would say definitely do it. You will improve from your situation right now. What extent is hard to say. You will improve, but then that's like a first step to recovery and to get better.
Yeah.
So I would say do it. That's good. See how it goes, and then we're gonna work on other things as well, because you might have other issues or other problems to correct. But it's always a first step to recovery. So I would encourage that anyway, and tell him like that it will help at a certain extent, and then depending of the condition or how I would say to what extent the kyphosis position is, you will need like maybe other advices as well.
Yeah. And in terms of, let's say I'm a CrossFit athlete now on the other extreme, and I do quite a lot of pressing. What is the benefit of just straight arm hanging or straight arm pushing, just basically straight arm strength that you see?
You mean in terms of pressing or just hanging?
Just if I at the moment, let's say I'm just pressing in terms of what my arms are doing. I do mostly pressing. And I'm slowly starting to introduce more straight arm holds. So either straight arm pressing or straight arm hanging, or just different kinds of hangs. What benefit does that have for me, who I like to move and be athletic and do move quite a lot of weight fast?
Yeah, so I would say for CrossFitters who like who've got that intensity in terms of weight training, who got very high skill movements, whether it's in Olympic lifting or in gymnastic. I think that doing that hanging is a bit like what we spoke before. Is gonna prevent you to maybe get some injuries, and maybe as well that's gonna open up a bit more your joints, because the problem that when you do a sport like with very high skill and often you tend to tighten your joints or tighten your muscles at some point. And as you say, hanging provides you a stretch, as well. And every stretches are beneficial. Whether you're doing a press, whether you're doing like a snatch or overhead squats, it's just going to help you to keep a healthy shoulder and joint as well.
Yeah.
So that's something that you should, like when you see, like when you do CrossFit and in classes, like, and if you got like most of the time any kind of gymnastic movement in your workout or some lifting, most of the coaches make you like doing a dead hang from the bar at the start and then hacking them and then some like keeping as well. And that's good as a warm-up. It could be good as well as a cool down after a heavy workout on your shoulder, just to make a bit of blood flow as well onto your joints and to stretch a bit all these tissues. So yeah, I would include it in my, I think it's already there, but because that's such a simple movement, you could do it like more often. It won't harm you in any ways, I think. Being mindful about like obviously not staying there for like 30 minutes, I think it would be quite hard. But yeah.
I'm thinking I've got decent pressing strength, but if you make me hold something overhead, like a straight arm hold, it doesn't translate. So it's embarrassing how much weaker I am with straight arms. And yesterday I was trying to do some hanging in different positions, and I could feel every single muscle and tendon along this line suddenly starting to freak out. And I was thinking, like, what is wrong with me? And I can do pull-ups, it's not a problem. Bending my arm, no problem. Chin-ups. But as long as you make me hang in different positions, suddenly the whole line starts to freak out, because it's
is it in a certain position of your hang? Is it when you've got like a narrow grip or a wide grip?
It was so I did a German hang, so like upside down with my chest stretched and my arms overhead, and that just stretched the entire, I don't know what was weaker, but I started feeling the tendons around the elbow. I was like, what is happening? So
that's a very skilled movement as well. So it provides you usually a big stretch onto your inside of your arm and also on your pecs. So for people with tight pecs, like they really feel it, like, and sometimes they can't go over completely looking down and with the feet down. So it's a good indicator as well, but you've got tightness there, but that's much more like of a high skill movement as well.
Yeah. I thought, as someone who does a lot of pulling and pressing, I thought I should try to stretch out everything, because that's constantly my, if you're hunched and then you do a lot of pressing, you just keep tightening and tightening and tightening here. So I thought, okay, let me try a bit of a stretch. And then, okay, well, if anyone wants further advice, I'm going to put all your information under the video so they know where to find you, both athletes and everybody else, or athletes from different backgrounds, or just people who need to see an osteo for whatever reason. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, thank you. Well, I think it's, and kids, and I would say, just ask as well if some of you got already an osteopath or physio or chiropractor or any physical therapist, just to kind of spread the word and just like ask them their opinion about it as well, because I think that like that's just something to really dig down a bit, just to work on it, because the benefits are great.
Thank you. It's great talking to you, because you see so many people every day. speak soon.
Yeah, speak soon. Thank you, Stella. And keep the work, keep what you're doing right now. I think is great. I think your challenge hanging is great, and I think you are like having a lot of people as well now joining around the world as well.
Yeah, we've had like 80 people signed up to the challenge, but then I'm not sure why. I think there was an error in the email, and not 80 people joined. I think about maybe 20 people have actually. I'm not actually sure who is doing it. Some people are hanging in silence. But it's just great to see interest from different places. Around the world. Maybe more. I would like some people actually fully around the world, like in Asia. But
yeah,
we're going to run it again for sure, because it's just, as you say, it's a great little piece of movement nutrition to add to the diet.
Exactly. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you.
And you have a lovely day ahead in the sunshine.
You too. I'll speak soon.
Speak soon. Bye, Stella.
Bye.
Bye.